This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to my review of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I am hopefully going to get this whole series done in this review. If not, I'll do the first 4 seasons. I spent about an hour trying to figure out a problem with my computer because the audio was not recording. I finally figured it out. So, as long as I get the chance, I will be doing a full review of the show. If not, I will have seasons 1 to 4 in this video, and seasons 5 to 7 next week. So let's just go right into this. And as a show, I've really enjoyed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I started watching it, I think it was in the middle of season 1. I don't remember the exact episode, but it was after everything with Winter Soldier. I do remember that. So I don't remember exactly where I started when I originally watched the show, but with it, I watched the back half of season 1 and eventually watched all of season 1 and was watching the other seasons as they aired. And yeah, I thought that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a really fun show. I didn't know the entire twist with Ward when I watched season 1 fully. So, unlike others, I never got extremely attached to him since I knew going in that he would be evil at the end. But still, I really did enjoy the show, and yeah, going into season 1, I think season 1 was a really good season. I know many people don't like it as much, but I still like the original team and think they did a good job. It was a really fun season, and we got a bunch of different storylines, all relating to the storyline with the clairvoyant. And with this, yeah, I think season 1, it was done really well. It has some fun episodes in it, and there are just some, throwaway ones, which are still fun. I really did enjoy the first season and think that they did a really good job with it. And I think it really gets good right around a little bit past the halfway point in the season, around episode 16. There are some interesting ones before it, like a good arc between episodes 12 to 14. I say, yeah, maybe it is around episode 12, but there's one really bad episode in between, which is episode 15, Yes Men. And that is one that is not too good of an episode. Probably the worst one of the season. But looking at it, things get really good with episode 17, Turn, Turn, Turn. And this is when it ties into Winter Soldier and Hydra and everything. And this is where I really got into it. I really started loving the show here, where we get all this crazy stuff. And even though this is about where I started watching, I think that it was really cool to see stuff like Ward become Hydra, even though that was basically, I think, the first thing I saw. I don't think I saw the Sif episodes, so I think the first one was either End of Beginning or Turn, Turn, Turn. Those are probably one of the first episodes I watched. I don't know which one it was, but with Turn, 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 that was a really interesting one. It ties into Winter Soldier really well. And I don't remember exactly how they marketed it, but it's pretty crazy to think that they had an entire episode based off of the plot of Winter Soldier, which came out basically the Tuesday after. And if someone didn't see the film, they would have had it spoiled in the show. And I think that is pretty interesting. And I don't know if they did have a spoiler warning before it, since I obviously didn't watch it live. And it was a few weeks after, so I knew about the stuff with Hydra, and I already watched Winter Soldier. So I was really interested in that, and I think they did a good job handling it with everything in Hydra, but I think that it's also interesting to see how they turned Ward into Hydra, and he became a villain from that point, even though, he was playing a really, cliche character, but it made sense when you're looking back because he was just playing an act. And I think that might be part of the reason I appreciated the season a lot more than others, because everyone would think through most of the season that Ward is this cliche character until they learn the twist. But I went in knowing the twist since I watched the end of the season first. So yeah, with that, I was able to appreciate a lot more and was waiting for the moment when Ward would turn on them, which was a lot more interesting. John Garrett also plays a great role as the season's villain, as the clairvoyant. And even though he is, not a real clairvoyant and just uses his shield clearance, I still think it was a really good mystery for them to have. And it's basically the Hydra twist isn't something you see coming because unless you know this is gonna happen from Winter Soldier, you don't see Shield being infiltrated by Hydra, and it's only in the episode before that they figure out that the clairvoyant is a Shield agent. And with this, I'm not 100% sure exactly what would others be thinking because I went in, as I said before, knowing the twist. So I knew where this was going to go, so I wasn't looking at it trying to figure out who the clairvoyant was and all this other stuff, and just I already knew it, so I'm not really sure what people thought at the time. Personally, I still enjoy it, even though I always knew who it was, and yeah, I think it's also really fun that Samuel L. Jackson did get to come in with the first season. There's also a few other fun MCU cameos, like seeing Maria Hill and a few other minor characters like Jasper Sitwell. And I think that was a really fun thing to do. I really did enjoy that, and I had just so much fun watching the show. And with it, I want to kind of just know what you thought of the first season because if you watched it at the time, I really want to know what you thought while watching it and how obvious the twist was with the clairvoyant, or if you think that it was a well handled twist because I think the word being Hydra, I don't think anyone saw that coming because that came completely out of nowhere. But everything else, I think that was a really big twist, unless I am missing something again. Someone and many people were able to pick up on this twist before it happened. And moving on to season two, I think that they did a really good job with this also, putting in the Inhuman storyline and basically running with it, turning Sky at the time into the character of Daisy Johnson, aka Quake. I think that was really interesting to do, and also having stuff with Ward and him with Hydra and everything, trying to find his place, as we see just so many other things, including Coulson going and having this alien writing for the first half of the season until he figures it out. He also expands S.H.I.E.L.D. being the new director, and we get many more characters, including some great ones with Mac, Bobby, and Hunter coming in. And I think that was really nice to see. Everything that was handled with it was really interesting. I really like the storyline with the Inhumans and Daisy's father. I think that was handled well. And it was a really interesting season. And when eventually winds up with a war between the Inhumans and S.H.I.E.L.D., I think that was really well done and put Daisy right in the middle, or Sky at the time, because she's Daisy for most of the show. in the first two seasons she is Sky, and yeah, I think it was interesting to see. And it was a well done season. I really did enjoy it. I think they did a good job. Moving to season three, this is the entire one with Hive and the origins of Hydra and everything. Yeah, I think this was another really good season. Personally, I don't love the fifth episode, which is how Simmons survives on Mavis. And honestly, I just feel like that could have been spread out between a few episodes and flashbacks, and didn't need to be a full episode. I don't know, I just personally never loved this episode. I think this might be a more popular episode. Honestly, I just didn't love this one. But I did love the storyline with Lash and seeing how he turned into a monster. I think that was really interesting. And then seeing Coulson's revenge plan after, well, word goes and kills the head of the ATCU. I think it was Rosalind. But yeah, that was a nice storyline for Coulson where he gets revenge, but also accidentally unleashes Hive upon the world. I think Mavis, the episode, not the one talking about Simmons' time there, is a really intense one, and it is great when you get to see Coulson kill Ward, because even though Ward was a likable character in the first season, well, most of it, once he turns evil, you're just waiting for things to get intense, and it does feel kind of satisfying, although disappointing that Ward is killed off since he was a really good character. But I am glad he at least returned as Hive and one more cameo during the Framework storyline, which was also really good, but I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going through this a lot faster than I thought he would, so this should be a review of the entire show because I'm just going over the broad stuff with this. Oh, this is a good show. This definitely isn't my favorite, and something I don't want to go too in depth with. So, yeah, looking at it, I really do enjoy season three, and I think that it is interesting to have Hive as the villain and his ultimate defeat, with this moment being foretold pretty early into the season. I think it was like episode 15 or 16. Yeah, no, it's episode 15 where we get to see the vision of the future. There's also the pretty sad episode where Bobby and Hunter do leave, although that was intended, I think, to set up another TV show. But that TV show ultimately ended up failing and disappointing because the characters were great and we don't get to see them again besides a appearance of Hunter in early season 5. And yeah, that is a pretty disappointing thing because they were good characters. Plus, we got some good storylines with them in seasons 2 and the first half of 3. Yeah, looking at Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., season 3 was really good, and the ultimate ending with Lincoln sacrificing himself to take out Hive was handled really well, and I think it was interesting. Moving to season 4, it has two storylines throughout it. There's sort of an A and B plot like The Flash does currently, and with it, you could sort of say that 4A is the Darkhold and Ghost Rider arc, while the second half is the LMD arc. And with it, they both do tie together really well. And the Ghost Rider stuff, it was interesting. I think it was more for a character of Ghost Rider, and I didn't care too much about the villains being the sort of ghosts of the workers at the lab, and then eventually Ghost Rider's uncle. And yeah, with that, I think that 4A's storyline, it was it was good for Ghost Rider. and a few other things. But besides that, I think it wasn't their best storyline. Oh, there was one I do like a little less than it. I think that it is one of the weakest ones because there are some really awesome things, and I don't think anything in the show is really bad. But that's just my main problem with this specific part of the season, is that I think the villains weren't the best. But looking at some other things with this, we do have cool stuff, as I said, like Ghost Rider, Daisy going to be a more public hero, being Quake, and yeah, all of that was interesting. And also having a new director's shield with Jeffrey Mace, who wasn't my favorite character, but was still cool. I really did like that. And then moving to the LMD storyline, that's where it gets really good because specifically there's the framework arc, and that one is probably the best arc of the show. It's definitely so interesting to see this alternate world where Hydra won and they have to fight through it to go and save everyone. I think that that was such an interesting storyline and really well done. Made you get to see these characters in such different roles, and yeah, I think that was really interesting. And the after effects of that, I think that the final battle with Ada was good, but I really love that storyline in the framework and think it was one of their best, if not the best, storylines in the show because of how unique it was. It really was a fun time. And yeah, moving to season 5, I really didn't like the start of this season. I don't know what it is. I just really didn't love the in space part, at least most of it. I just feel like it just felt so boring. I really love episode 5 Rewind. That's where Hunter returns and we see Fitz's journey to space. And around about after that, I think it gets pretty good. But yeah, I feel like the start of season 5, it was just really weak. Even though I love, sci-fi stuff, as you probably know, Star Wars is my favorite franchise. But I just feel like this specific storyline just didn't feel too good. Although I really do love the rest of the season 5, I think that just the start of it, especially, is just really weak because it feels just like your average post-apocalyptic storyline with, people who are, just kind of cliche for it. But after that, and they start going to them trying to figure out how to save the world, I think that gets really intense, and the back half of season 5 is really good. I like how it does tie into the events of Infinity War, and even though this basically, confirms that this series no longer takes place in the MCU, although I think probably the first 2 seasons can be considered MCU canon, and if you want to say at the moment that the change truly is when the Terrigen goes over the edge and infects the waters, I think you could maybe say that that is the moment where everything truly changes because after that stuff starts to not fully go in line with the MCU, like Inhumans becoming really big, as some stuff you would assume would be mentioned. With stuff like the other Netflix shows, they didn't have too many major things happening, and it was really localized. But with the events of seasons 3 and 5 mainly, there were world-ending events that were happening that they were able to prevent. But with season 5, just going back to it, I really did like the fall of General Talbot into Gravitron. I think he was an interesting villain. I really did enjoy this season, and I think they did a great job, and also they did write off Coulson in a good way. I think it was interesting, and I'm guessing this was intended to be the finale because coming into season 6, I think that this is also one of the weaker seasons, but that's mainly because Coulson isn't here. Coulson was, I think, was truly the heart of the show and is really why I wanted to keep watching. Some of my favorite parts in season 6 are the flashbacks to Coulson, although I do really like the other characters. I just think that it's not as special without Coulson because Coulson was such a great character in this. I was really glad that they brought him back as an LMD in season 7. But yeah, season 6, I think it's a decent storyline, putting the monoliths and everything in, although they never explained the Kree monolith from Maveth and how that was made, since there are, well, the three ones that were used by the character of Azel. But yeah, with this, I think that it was a decent season. Just my personal problem with it is that it just didn't have, Coulson in it, and Coulson was such a great character. It was one of the main reasons I watched the show because Coulson was such a great character, although some of the other characters were really good. I just feel like without Coulson being there, it didn't feel as strong. And overall, this is probably the worst season in my opinion, although I think that the in space storyline I think I dislike more overall because even though Coulson is there, I just feel like I don't really enjoy the starting of that. And although I think the ending part is good to just the part where they're in the future, I just honestly didn't love that. I'll talk about some other characters because I'm guessing why I haven't mentioned Fitz and Simmons yet because I think that's just better to talk about at the end because of just how crazy that storyline is, and it's just better to talk about it in one moment and not split it up between the seasons. We had to mention one character I haven't mentioned yet. Yo-Yo is it's a decent add-on to the show. She isn't my favorite, but I think she does serve a good role. And moving into season 7, this is definitely a great season, which is all revolves around time travel and a new alternate timeline. With this, I think it was handled really well, and we get a lot of fun stuff with the origins of S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydra, and more, and references to many things like Project Insight happening earlier. And we get the return of some of the Maliks, where they go and take on a new threat. Since we have Freddy and I believe it was, I don't remember the son's name, but we have the two Maliks who were basically dead during the events of the normal timeline of the show, were kept alive by the Chronicoms, and I think that was really interesting and unique to see. I think they did handle it well. I really did enjoy watching it. I think that it was so fun to see all this time travel stuff and also get a fun cameo from, not like a cameo, a fun appearance from Agent Sousa from Agent Carter. And I just think they did say that I only had Captain Marvel to review next week, but I also have Agent Carter and the one shots to review. So that's gonna be part of next week's scheduled content, but so I think season 7 is good and they did a great job ending it, putting everyone in their own new spot and being ready for the future. I think that it was really interesting and I really did enjoy it. And yeah, I wanted to know specifically right now what you think of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as a whole. But as I promised, I'm going to talk about Fitzsimmons just in a full section because this is the most complicated part of the show because of how bad their luck is on this. And yeah, with this, two characters, I think it was extremely obvious from the start that they were, gonna be in love, and the relationship was extremely obvious. I think most people saw this coming, and they even say it in their wedding in season 5 that many saw this coming before they did. Oh, they're referring to the characters in universe. I'm guessing it was a thing towards the audience also, who knew this was going to happen eventually. But yeah, with it, they have some of the worst luck possible. And I mean, with this, I think you could truly believe the character Fitz saying that they're cursed because, looking at it, in season 1, they get trapped at the bottom of the ocean where Fitz nearly dies and gets brain damage so he could save Simmons. And then in the end of season 2, Simmons gets pulled to the world of Maveth, and with that, she also gets, pretty pulled away from Fitz, and things get really bad with them, again, with them being separated. And then in season 4, they have everything with the framework, and Fitz thinking he's not worthy because the personality he was programmed with in the framework made him do some pretty horrible things, and he feels really guilty about that. And they're separated again when Simmons is set to the future and Fitz is not. And with that, things are getting, even crazier with that. And then they do get married in season 5 because of how crazy things are. And then Fitz dies in season 5. And then they go and find the other version, but that gets extremely complicated. And yeah, season 7, they have to be separated because their minds were downloaded by the Chronicoms. And wow, that was just such a complicated storyline. Where they also have a daughter, and that's raised from Simmons' mind during the events of season 7. And yeah, that was just such a crazy episode, just on how they did it, because there's just so much that happens in it, and I think it was a great storyline through them. And I'm not a huge person on the love relationships, but that storyline was handled well because they just went and did so much development on it, and they went through probably some of the craziest things ever, and they did not have that great luck, but I'm glad they did get a happy ending. And that might change if something else happens with the characters, but since they have retired, which is probably a smart thing, because just being with S.H.I.E.L.D., they were in so much danger, and even though they're extremely young, I think it's probably better for them to be retired because you honestly don't know what's going to happen next with them with how unlucky they are. But yeah, I think that storyline was handled really well. And I just really enjoy this show. I think they did such a great job with it. It's so much fun when watching. Yeah, as I said, my favorite character in it is Colston, and I think that was the best part of it, but some of the other characters are so great. Yeah, I want to know what you think of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.